What have they done to the body? What have they done to the body that we're talking about that is this aesthetic creature that's so intelligent? Christianity and religion have made it into a monstrosity, the prison of the soul, no less. And yet the body's where our spirit begins and ends. Julian James has pointed out that the subjective space is a recent phenomenon. Right? Remember we said that, the internal space? Studies of primitive people shows that they have no words for emotions, or that their explanations of subjective and emotional states are restricted to explanations of the external space and situation, or to the sensations they had at that location. What? That they have no words for emotions. And if you describe that this happened, this moment of arousal when you saw this woman in your track, their descriptions of it are of the place that it happened, and the sensations, the most external things that happened. The place, that means that the external world, which your ego is in touch with, was the first cognition. The internal space did not exist. And it also means that the ego, right, is the outer part facing the world. In simpler terms, it just means that we have an upper and a lower. We have the ego and the self. And the domain or dominion is down, under, in the Dante's Inferno that they've demonized for centuries. In the center of the core of the person is the still point. At the still point there the dance is, says T.S. Eliot. Examine Shiva, his pose. Shaman 21, the card, the last card of the tarot. Why is she dancing? That is a stillness. That is a oneness, a true oneness, if you will, that underlies all other things. A wholeness should be a more accurate term. But really what's going on is that speaker and listener again. Because these two selves, shall we say, are really two voices. And they're interchanging and dialoguing. They're friends. This minute they're enemies the next minute, because that's the ever-changing way it is. You can't stop it. You can't educate people to have one voice only. There's a constant dialogue between the wise one, who is also a fool, and the fool who's also the wisest. In your very life, every single day, it's not in physical language, although that's part of it too. It is in physical language, but it's in biochemistry, bioenergy. The exchange of language between the inner self and its colleague, its twin self, Horus and Set. Set is the dark one, remember, who faces within. Horus faces out, he's the solar child, but Set put out his eye. Which means what? That Horus, for all his light, is half blind. Meaning he lacks inner sight. Set sees all. And Set is, by the way, the oldest god in Egypt. The goddess is older, but he is the first son of the first god in the oldest pantheon. This dialogue is the reason also for a lot of artwork, as we said, but also for a lot of mandalas. The square and the triangle. Right? The triangle is the inner core, and the square is the outward core. They put them together to make a mandala. That is communication. Didn't see Wittgenstein talking too much about mandalas. But the 3 and the 4, the pyramid is 3-4. The cube is 3-4. There's a dialogue even geometrically, so to speak, the Vesica Pisces. So what we refer to as knowledge is the result of an endless and ever-shifting interrelation between the brain, body, and unconscious. Consciousness, as we call it, is the result of the exchange of information between these hemispheres or centers of intelligence. The result of the reciprocal dialogue. One network is forever discovering more about the other in an endless, but in a similar manner as we gain increasing knowledge about another person. This inner dialogue between bioenergetic hemispheres cannot come to completion. It is an never-ending, perpetual, vital process. That order out there is desperately trying to cut you into that mold, to murder, to dissect. To hold you down. Earlier we touched on the idea that maybe then this processor up here, I'm saying two cells, obviously it's infinite, isn't it? That's why the Egyptians had infinite God. The liver is talking, the skin is talking, the fingernails are talking. How can it not be? If I'm playing the guitar, it is not the brain that is playing the guitar. Something unbelievable is taking place. Absolutely unbelievable. The body is playing the guitar. The body is consciousness. The body is intelligent. So this processor we need. But theoretically, at least, that could move to some other place or take up the totality. As Grodek is saying, actually, it is just the administrator. And maybe in some other perfect world or with meditation, not that I'll try it, But this battery could be moved and become the whole self. This opens up a lot of interesting areas. We know now that there's neural cells in the heart, but the whole body can become a brain. And this exchange I'm talking about obviously flows between us all as well. The bioenergy exchange is between people as well, as it also is between self and nature. David Matsumoto says that the English word intelligence is derived from the Latin word intelligentia, coined 2,000 years ago by a Roman orator, Cicero. We use the term intelligence to refer to a number of different abilities, skills, talents, and knowledge, generally referring to our mental or cognitive abilities. It's the totality. So if we're intelligent, it's not just this thing, that's just a processor that receives and transmits and collates. That's why it's hot. That's why we think we're thinking with this. We're not. We're absolutely not, and they prove it now. Even scientifically they prove it. One person who's going absolutely blue in the face about this is the singer Lisa Gerard from the band The Dead Can Dance. Endlessly going on and on about this dialogue. Open it up. Sing, speak to yourself, chant. The children chant, the baby moans, the baby is already singing. But it has to be your language. And language verbally is not just what is the only level of communication. Obviously, we know that. But that's where do you think the mantras and the chanting and the hymns and even the prayers come from? The whole universe is in song. And we have this internal music, this internal dialogue playing between the music of the spheres. Beethoven was stone deaf and is going to compose the 9th century. What are you telling me? What are you telling me? And then you're going to tell me man is limited. How dare you throw that in my face? That this 9th symphony can be composed by a man who's stone deaf. And Beethoven himself said, if you understood my music, you'd never be having sorrow one more time in your life. Because it is the testament of something so immense. As so much of this creativity is. But the creativity comes from that imagination that is tuned in and is harmony with the bioenergy of the greater universe. I'm talking about the bioenergy of the body. What the hell? The bioenergy of the entire universe is also talking to you, but you've closed off. But it will never stop. See, here's the trick. We may wipe ourselves out, but as they said, the world will still be turning when you're gone. That is also a creative act, by the way. You participating in this inner dialogue has some other things I haven't yet mentioned about how unique and magical it is. The first thing is it's a truly creative act in the highest way of the magical creative act. The second thing is it is probably one of the only, and possibly even the only, act that the self does for and to the self. Self cannot be, the word self is absolutely made into a misnomer, a complete non-word, if you even think of another thing that somebody else does. A self can only act for itself. Nothing that it does, as Ayn Rand has pointed out, is for another person. Sorry, that's just a certainty. So then one would then inquire, what is the self to do that is of and for itself? It can only assert itself actively into this dialogue and become part of it. That is the act that it does for itself. I'm assuming there's other ones as well, but I really haven't come up with any yet. That's the main one. The active participation to silence the chit-chat and start listening to a song. Not, as the Eastern pastors saying, well, you got to silence all that chatter in your mind. Do you see what we've been told? Do you see what we have been deluded to believe? What chatter in my mind? Well, yeah, anybody can tell you. I live in California, they always tell you. Well, it's very hard to meditate. I was really pissed off. I used to do it a lot, actually, but now I stopped. Yeah, I just can't silence that chatter in my mind. I got a lot of books on it, and I've joined a lot of cults and classes to deal with it, and I even follow a guru, Sai something, blah, blah, whatever his name bloody might be. Kumar Swami Ananda, such and such. And he's teaching me how to do it. Hold me back. Hold me back. What? More masochism? More self-sadism? That's just what you need. No wonder I can go psychotic trying it. No, don't stop it. Don't try that. Let it go. Participate in it. There's a dialogue of yourself to yourself taking place. Zaz says, in defining what a human being is or ought to be, language remains perhaps the single most important criterion. The idea that thought cannot exist without speech was implicit in the Greek language. Phrasomai, the Greek term for I meditate, means literally I speak to myself. The Greek term for reason also means speech.